So I was in Denver, and my companion at that time, so this was my first transfer in the Bible Park ward. And we were visiting a woman who was a member of the church, and we asked her, you know, like, is there anybody you know around you that we can teach? And she was telling us about her neighbor. And she was like, yeah, but he probably is not going to be interested. Like, you know, don't go over there type thing. But we still did. So we went over and we knocked on his door, and his name is Bernard. And he is the sweetest man. And he's originally from Louisiana. Anyways, and so we asked him, we were like, you know, Bernard, we are missionaries. We'd love to come and talk to you about the message that we share that we know will bring you happiness. And so he was like, yeah, definitely. So we gave him our number, and he gave us his, and so we set up an appointment for the next day. And anyways, the next day he called us, and he was like, we're like, no, he's gonna cancel, and then we're never gonna be able to teach him. But he canceled, and he was like, I'm so sorry, ladies, like, I had a doctor's appointment and it's just like going way over. I'm so sorry. Can we reschedule for tomorrow? And so we were like, of course. And so, you know, the next day we're just like crossing our fingers, like, come on, like, please, you know, please be there. Please, you know, be able to listen and take some time for us. And he was there. And so we went in and we taught him about the restoration of the gospel. And so, you know, we went through the lesson, and the first lesson, and preached my gospel. Anyways, and so after we shared the Joseph Smith's experience in the Sacred Grove, when he, you know, his first vision, when he saw God and Jesus Christ, after we shared that with him, we asked him, we were like, Bernard, do you think that could happen? Do you think that, you know, a young boy could see God and Jesus Christ? And he sat there and he was like, yeah, I think that Mr. Smith did see God, and I think that he did see Jesus Christ. And he's like, yeah, definitely. Like, I definitely think that's something that could happen. And both me and my companion are like, what? Like, oh my gosh, that's okay. Yeah, he did. Like, and we were just so excited. And it's kind of hard to like not geek out about things like that, you know, when you're just kind of like taken aback. And so we began teaching him, and like teaching him more, and we gave him the Book of Mormon, and so he's a little bit older, and he has some problems seeing, and so we had to get him like one of the large print copies of the Book of Mormon. However, in the large print, it's the triple combination, so it's the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. And so we'd like leave him chapters to read in the Book of Mormon, and but like we'd come back and he was like, yeah, I was reading in the Doctrine and Covenants. And we're like, what, Bernard? Like, that's great. But like, did you read in the Book of Mormon? And it was just so awesome, because he had like, he was truly elect. Like, he knew already. And it was just so wonderful to see that. And so we had the high priest group leader and his wife come over, and they, you know, began to like kind of fellowship, and so Bernard, he was coming to church and everything, and he was just so ready to get baptized. Like, I remember we taught him about the word of wisdom, and you know, just asking him was like, is that gonna be an issue for you? Like, what can we do for you? And he was like, no, like, I mean, if I were to smoke, it's only like once every 5 months, you know? And so it's just like, okay. And so he was ready, and he recognized that there was something more to the message that we had to share. And then there's another experience that comes to mind. There was this man named Dave, and this is towards the end of my mission. And so the sisters had been teaching him before, and I had just gotten to this area, and the teachers were having a really hard time getting him to commit to reading things, to reading from the Book of Mormon. And so like he'd let the sisters in, and he wouldn't read. And we're just like, come on, Dave, like, you gotta read, please read. And so my companion and I, we got there, and we had taught him once before. And, you know, during weekly planning, that's something that you do every week. You kind of discuss what you're going to teach those that, you know, you've been meeting with. So it's like, okay, like Dave, he's been taught the restoration of the gospel, and he's been taught the plan of salvation. So, well, should we move on to lesson 3, or like what things is he missing? And so we had kind of been like, okay, so this is our last lesson that that we'll teach him, unless the next time he keeps his commitment and he reads. And so we went in and we were talking to him, and he just, I mean, I don't know if you've ever met somebody that just looked sad. Like you just knew that person was not enjoying life. And so I just like saw this man, and I was just like, he is so miserable. Like what could have been, like what could have happened in his life to make him just so sad? And I honestly, like, it was so interesting, because I don't know why he would have let us in if he wasn't willing to, you know, to listen or to change. And so we, during this lesson, we kind of like, we kind of just were really bold with him. And that's something that as missionaries, you're really encouraged to be, because Christ was really bold, and he, and that's the way that you show love, is by being bold with people, by, you know, telling them like, these are the things that you need to do to be happy. And, you know, we love you, and that's why we're teaching you about these things. And so we kind of just said, you know, Dave, like, you are not a happy person. You seem like you are so sad, that life really isn't giving you the things that you want. But we, as missionaries, we have this book, the Book of Mormon. And this is something that I know can change your life. But you have to read it, because the messages in it, they help us to come closer to Jesus Christ. And through that, that's how we obtain happiness. And so we left, and we left him a chapter to read in the Book of Mormon. And we left, and we're like, okay, like in our heads, man, like I need to repent, because we had no faith in him. We were like, he's not going to read. We're just going to have to drop him. And when I say drop, I mean like, you know, stop teaching him. That's like one of the missionary lingo words. And we're like, so we're gonna need to stop teaching him, because we need to spend our time elsewhere with people who are elect and who are willing to listen, or people who could be elect. And so we go back, and we were like, okay, Dave, like, did you read? And he was like, yeah, and I've got some questions about that. And both of us are just like shocked, because we're like, oh my gosh, like he's gonna read. He read. Oh my gosh. And so, you know, like you just get like, your heart just kind of like leaps, and you just get so excited. And so he was reading, and every time he would, since then he read all the time. And then we, you know, like, then he started coming to church. And then, like, so the next time, we asked him, we had planned, we're like, okay, we're going to talk to Dave about baptism, because that's something that he needs to do. And you're encouraged to, that's something that you're taught to do as a missionary, is in the first lesson to invite the investigator to be baptized. And because that really is our purpose as missionaries, is to invite people to come unto Christ through doing these certain things, so that you can really be happy. And that's how you come unto Christ, is faith, repentance, baptism, etc. He had been invited to be baptized a couple times before. And so we're like, okay, we need to invite him to be baptized again. We need to talk to him about baptism, because that is the only way that he's going to progress. And so we get there, and we are already, we're like about to talk to him about baptism, and he's like, I have a question. And we're like, okay, what's your question, Dave? And he says, now, can you be baptized more than once? And we're like, well, yes, it just depends on like who baptizes you and who has the authority. And he was like, okay. And so we invited him to be baptized, and we set a date, and he was set for a baptismal date. And it was just so wonderful to see the change that happened in him, because he went from being so sad and so miserable to reading the Book of Mormon, to coming to church, to keeping the commandments. Like, for example, we went in and we're like, okay, we know that Dave drinks tea, and we know that he's drank coffee for a really long time, and we know that he chews tobacco. This is going to be a really hard thing to teach him about the word of wisdom, because he has a lot that he has to give up. We went in there, and first we started talking about obedience. We're like, okay, these things, like, we are commanded to be obedient to the things that God has commanded us to do. Like, obedience is important. It's essential for us to be happy and to come closer to God and to live with him again. So he was like, okay. And so we had one of the pamphlets, like, of the word of wisdom, and we read it together with him. And so, I was like, okay, we need to abstain from tea and alcohol and tobacco and coffee. And so after we read it, we're like, Dave, what do you think about this? And he was like, that's going to be really hard. Like, I mean, I've been drinking coffee for 40 years. I've been chewing tobacco for longer than that. And I drink tea. And we're like, oh, okay, yeah, it's going to be really hard. And so we were just telling him, like, you can do anything through Christ. And we had a couple with us, the Kerrs, and they just testified of the importance of, being obedient and how those things will really bless him. And we're like, Dave, okay, we will do whatever you need. We will do exactly what you need us to do. We will be here to help you. We will, like, whatever you need, like, we can call you every day, we can come over, we can stop by just for a little bit every day to make sure that you're doing okay with taking these things away. And he was like, oh man, okay. And so he was like, okay. And I don't know what came over me. I don't even remember saying it, but I was like, can we take your tobacco and your tea and your coffee right now? And he was like, okay. And I'm like, wait, what just happened? Like, everyone's like shocked that like I asked this question, and I'm like, I don't even remember asking this question. And so Brother Kerr goes to the kitchen with him, and like, it's this big bag. It's like this big trash bag, and like he throws like new packages of like tea that hasn't been opened, and like he puts his like these little containers of chewing tobacco in there, and his coffee, and I think he even put his coffee filters in there. And we are just astounded that he has, that he's doing this. We're just like, oh my gosh, what? And so we left that night, and the next time we went back, so we put that stuff, we disposed of it, and actually Brother Kurt took it with him to dispose of it, so that, there wasn't any possible way of him going out to the dumpster to get it. And, and so we went back the next time, and we're like, okay, Dave, like, how are you doing? And he's like, it's been really hard. It's been really hard. And so I've had before this, I'd had experiences where, like, they're committed to live the word of wisdom, and then they're really good for a couple days, and then, they have a rough day, and so they drink coffee or whatever it is. And so I'm like, okay, if he's done this, like, it's going to be a little bit harder, because we're going to need to make sure that he is completely, he's fine to get baptized, because like, you don't want to baptize somebody who's going to like just go right back into their addictions. And so he was telling us, yeah, it's been really hard. It's been really hard. And so we're like, okay, Dave, have you drank coffee, tea? Have you chewed tobacco? Have you drank any alcohol? And he's like, nope, I haven't touched any of it. And we're just like, yes, we're just like, oh my goodness, God is so good. And it was just so wonderful. And since that day that we took that stuff away, he left it behind him. He hasn't touched it. And so a couple weeks later, I had just left the area, and it was my last Saturday in the mission, and he got baptized. And it was so wonderful because we saw him smile, and he was just beaming. And it was just an amazing experience because that was a time where I saw the gospel literally change somebody's appearance. He went from being so sad to someone, like, I had never seen him smile until, like, the closer he got to his baptism. That's when we started seeing him, like, have more, like, he was telling jokes and he was, like, being funny, and we're just like, who is this Dave? Like, this is a new person. We haven't taught him before, but he was so happy. And since then, because I'm still really close to the Kerrs, the couple that would come to the lessons, and Brother Kerr is now the new bishop, and Brother and Sister Kerr, Bishop and Sister Kerr, they've told me that, like, Dave is, like, on his 4th time or his 3rd time reading the Book of Mormon, and that he's doing family history work, because he doesn't have a car, and so he walks to the church to do family history. And I mean, it's not like a terribly far walk, but it's like at least a few miles. And that just, to me, like, Dave is an example of faith to me. And that's what I meant by earlier when I was saying, like, I knew that there are certain people that I needed to meet so that they could touch me and they could change me. And he did, because of just seeing the faith that he had, and seeing, this man who had little faith in God, and seeing him grow to have a testimony in the Savior and in the power of his atonement. That changed me. And especially just knowing how much better his life is because of it just makes me do better. It makes me want to be a better person because just of the change that he's undergone.